In 1999, a wave of UFO sightings flooded Paris. That year, a dossier was handed to investigative journalist Leslie Kean, where French pilots and generals described their UFO experiences on record. In 2017, Louis Elizondo picked Leslie to reveal the existence of AATIP. Let's explore. Hi everyone and welcome to Project Bluebook, where we explore all things unidentified. I am Thor and thanks for tuning in. Leslie Kean is not a household name in ufology, but she should. She didn't know it at the time, but her background made her an accidental match with what she was about to unearth and publish. On August 11th, 1999, a wave of UFO sightings invaded French media. It was impossible to ignore, as the sightings were witnessed by hundreds, if not thousands, of French citizens. In many ways, these sightings closely resemble crafts seen over Chinese and Mongolian airports in 2010 and off the Gold Coast of Australia in 2014. They were cylindrical in shape, beaming lights down to the surface. They were seen from Ceres in the east, along the A4 highway, and to the Versailles Castle in the west, but most were concentrated in the Paris Valley area. They were described by eyewitnesses as circular, cylindrical, egg-shaped, disc-shaped, and star-like in the way they glowed as if from an internal, self-contained light source, and some were beaming light down to the ground. One was eyewitnessed by a MUFON investigator who flew in from London and recorded video in Greenwich Mean Time. In Paris, it was an hour later. He described the object moving around and covering gray distances in milliseconds. It was close to the trees, and it was not in the direction of the sun, so there was no confusing it with other light sources in the sky. The MUFON investigator also saw a vapor trail as it moved from one spot to the other. He saw it pulsating, clearly demonstrating a round saucer or disc-shaped form. After about 50 seconds, it just vanished. Many other eyewitness accounts described similar sightings. Upward of 300 people came forward with eyewitness testimony, photographs, and video recordings. When Leslie received the 90-page report from France, possibly resulting from the massive sightings over Paris, her life was changed forever, and she became obsessed with the topic in the best possible journalistic way, meaning she pursued her sources and built substantial arguments for a story that we owe her great gratitude for. If you don't know this already, let me explain. Her background included the study of Buddhism that led her to exploring spirituality, ultimately leading her to writing a book about the afterlife titled Surviving Death, a journalist investigates evidence for an afterlife. She became an on-air host at a public radio station in San Francisco, and even as a published author, she had a difficult time finding a publication willing to commission this article. She found her match in the Boston Globe, famous for daring investigative journalism, including publishing the sexual abuse scandals of the Catholic Church. And even there, her article was heavily laced with jokes and quirkiness to give the reader of an article on UFOs an off-ramp of credibility should they need it. The 90-page dossier she had received was written by French Air Force pilots detailing their experiences with UFO encounters, titled in English, UFOs and Defense. For what must we prepare ourselves? ? But it wasn't just pilots talking about UFO encounters. Generals and admirals went on record stating they believed the case for the UFOs being of extraterrestrial origin, meaning of non-human intelligence origin. And the two aren't necessarily the same, a topic for another episode. But the French generals agreed the extraterrestrial intelligent beings' explanation was a very good hypothesis for these sightings. Leslie realized this wasn't just a huge story. If true, it was the biggest story perhaps in human history. And she thought, what if US 4 or 5-star generals stated something similar publicly? That they too believed UFOs were real and likely of extraterrestrial origin? Just imagine the public attention. That's what the French dossier stated. So she went on to write the article for Boston Globe and was hooked on the topic ever since. Because of her brush with the paranormal, the currently not accepted side of normality, that is, unexplained phenomena, including life after death, she was already there mentally, unfazed by attempts at ridicule and discreditation. She spent years on research and even sued NASA for information regarding the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania crash incident. In 2007, she collaborated with James Fox, director of the UFO 2020 documentary, The Phenomenon, to build a dossier of sorts stateside, where high-ranking military officials went on record describing their close encounters with UFOs. It resulted in a best-selling publication in 2010, UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. Then came 2017. A longtime military source known to Leslie invited her to meet Luis Elizondo on the day he retired from the military. He revealed to her that between 2007 and 2012, he had been the director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, a hidden, clandestine operation investigating UFOs that no one was to know existed. In their 2017 meeting, Luis Elizondo basically told her the program existed, and knowing who he was talking to, and that he was introduced to her by a source from within, apparently he did not care that she would write about it, or he wanted her to. To me, this was, of course, a major development that I suggest was both deliberate, intentional, and orchestrated. Their conversation led to a December 2017 New York Times article she wrote with Ralph Blumenthal and Helena Cooper, titled Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's Mysterious UFO Program. In the article, Leslie detailed for the first time to the public the 2004 aircraft carrier Nimitz encounter that we now know as the David Fravor Tic Tac video, shot in 2004 off the coast of California during a Navy exercise and released through the hands of Jeremy Corbell. Yes, she was the first to speak of it publicly in 2017, 3 years before the Pentagon intentionally released the video. Her source was Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, a retired fighter pilot who had spoken about the incident in classified settings with members of Congress and the Pentagon, and I can only speculate that she had an authorization approval to speak about it to an investigative journalist. Senator Harry Reid at the time simply confirmed the article was true and that in fact he had secured $22 million for the program back in 2007 through a bipartisan bill co-sponsored by Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska and Daniel Inouye of Hawaii. Reid credits Leslie with changing the cultural acceptance of UFOs, stating, quote, "She's a sensational journalist that writes with her heart," end quote. Her goal was simply to make UFOs not weird. She became known in UFO as well as journalism circles, if she wasn't already. New Yorker magazine printed an article about her, and since then the conversation about UFOs has increasingly gone mainstream, even if incrementally so. Along the way, she refuses to be called a ufologist, but instead, in the tradition of Linda Moulton Howe, she describes herself as an investigative journalist. She admits to an agenda, which is, she says, quote, "to get to the truth because I feel that people have a right to that truth," end quote. And very much consistent with statements made by many, including Jeremy Corbell, she is quick to point out that even as the technology presented by UFOs suggests advancement in science and physics multiple generations ahead of us, perhaps thousands of years, That does not automatically mean they are aliens from other planets. There is simply too much we still don't know. All she asserts is that there is plenty of data that proves the existence of intelligently controlled craft and encounters with humans using technology that far exceeds anything known by man. And today, increasing day by day, aspects of the government, including compartments at the Pentagon, without saying it directly, are actually saying that very same thing. And so our slow reveal continues. You can watch and listen to this and other podcasts on Project Bluebook, where we explore all things unidentified. Each day, let's practice compassion and kindness. And please subscribe. I am Thor, and thanks for tuning in. See you next time.